Welcome to StorySmack. This is episode 70 of StorySmack, a podcast about stories and storytellers in the world of pop culture. My name is A.B. Sigler, audiobook narrator and founding partner at Empty Set Entertainment.
And my name is Scott Sigler, #1 New York Times bestselling novelist. And would you like to know the probability of this episode being funny?
Yeah.
It's high. It's very high.
And back
That's
with
the
us
best I got today.
and back with us again today is Empty Set movie maven Rob Otto. Rob, how are you?
I am one with the Force, and the Force is with me. That's all
God.
you need to know.
Oh my
Yeah,
God,
and I know some of you are listening and not watching this. Rob has come. He's not messing around. He brought his Millennium Falcon. He bought original Millennium Falcon. He's dressed the part. I understand you might also be having a themed drink today.
I am, and this, I would love to take credit. Scott tried to give me credit for this, but there was an author that made a specific drink when this movie, Rogue One, came out, and it is called a gin and juice, a J-Y-N, after the lead character, Jyn Erso.
Oh, nice.
You know, some gin, some orange juice, some pineapple juice. It's lovely.
It
nice
seems
and
lovely,
refreshing.
yeah. And we kind of copped out. We're drinking gin and tonics.
But it's spelled the same.
But it's,
it's a
There you
J-Y
go.
tonic. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Ooh, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, everybody. If you're drinking at home and if you're listening to a podcast, you can pause this.
Yeah.
And you can go get yourself a beverage and you can listen to us while we get our drink on and get our Star Wars, get our geek on.
Absolutely. On this episode, we are discussing the 2016 Star Wars movie Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Can you give us the movie guy synopsis?
I can. Yeah, here we go. All looks lost for the rebellion against the Empire as they learn of the existence of a new superweapon, the Death Star. Once a possible weakness in its construction is uncovered, the Rebel Alliance must set out on a desperate mission to steal the plans for the Death Star. One woman, the future of the entire galaxy now rests upon her success. There you go.
Thank you.
And, of course, we love to start every one of these with, we got to talk about the ducats. We got to talk about the money. Making a movie is an incredibly expensive operation, very complicated, and it's a business. You guys always complain like, hey, well, they make crappy movies and they make money. It's about business. Baby, tell me about the box office for this bad boy.
Well, this is kind of interesting because we, as a trio, the three of us, as we've been doing StorySmack since we've been in lockdown, have talked quite a lot about movies that are 30 years old, 25 years old, 40 years old. And today we're talking about Rogue One. It came out in 2016. So I thought, well, I mean, I always do the conversion to real dollars. And when I do that for Rogue One cost $200 million to make.
That's a lot.
That was its budget, $200 million before marketing.
Okay.
And that would be $22.4 million in today's dollars. That's less impressive than sometimes when I do the conversion. But here's the thing. Its box office, it has made $1.1 billion. My goodness. That's over $1 billion.
That's
and if
insane.
you're
That's
unclear,
insane.
$1 billion is way bigger than $1 million. It's impressive. It's the first billion that we've ever had. That we're talking about. And I'm not sure how many there are, but there can't be that very many. So it made $1.1 billion dollars.
Robbie, give us your general thoughts, the high level thoughts in this movie. Then we're going to start talking about writers and cast and all the other good stuff.
Got it. So this movie came out after the number 7, right? Which was the Force Awakens, right? So this is the second of the Disney Star Wars movies, right? And they came out after. And, Force Awakens was okay. It was well received-ish, but people weren't sure. So when this one came out, I think it cemented. Real Star Wars fans said, okay, Disney's got their crap together. Now, they've made some subsequent movies that tell us we were wrong, but at the time, this movie restored our faith in the Star Wars galaxy.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think it's an interesting thing because anybody who's a Star Wars fan and a fan of Disney movies was like, wait a minute, what? How are we going to do this? And this was a good show. But one of the things that I love the most about this movie is We hear a lot about movies getting ruined because Hollywood makes movies by committee. Everybody has a say. The newest executive has a say, that sort of thing. And something that was beautiful and had a great, good, hard thing to tell ends up being sort of washed out. My favorite book before I met my husband was a book called A Winter's Tale. And it was made into a movie by Ang Lee. And I was so excited to go see it. And it was remarkably terrible. That's all I will say about it. It's one of my favorite books on earth, and I hate it. And it died by committee. That said, Rogue One might be the best made by committee movie ever because Kathleen Kennedy, who is the CEO of Lucasfilm, is still the CEO of Lucasfilm when Disney buys Lucasfilm, but she remains autonomous in a certain amount, in certain ways. So part of Lucasfilm is Industrial Light and Magic, and we will get into this. But John Knoll, right?
Knoll, yep.
John Knoll, who has worked with Kathleen Kennedy for years at Industrial Light and Magic, looks at the treatment for the new thing, says, I have this great idea that's better. And she's like, cool, yes, run with it. Also, I'm going to give you this director because he just did a big monster movie, and I think he can, and she's been in the industry 30 years. So he says, all right, I'll work with it. I mean, I'm not saying, I don't know how that conversation went down, but he's like, sure, fine, Gareth, that works. And she's like, also, I need to rewrite. We're going to have more voices here. And it turns out to be, for me, the no question best Star Wars movie that has ever been made. Because it's internally consistent. We were talking about this last night.
Yeah.
It's also intrinsically consistent. It's internally consistent to the universe at Star Wars. And this movie is a perfect circle. And it starts where it ends, and it doesn't change except for the better. It doesn't sort of disrupt the timeline of Star Wars. So I love that. And then there's so few movies in Hollywood that have been made well by committee.
Let me tell you my thoughts on this movie, ladies and gentlemen. Here's my high-level thoughts on this propaganda film. First of all, let's talk about these criminals. Let's talk about these goddamn criminals.
Lord. Oh, Lord.
I would like to point out that the first Death Star is depicted in various sources of having a crew of 265,675, as well as 52,276 gunners, 360,000 troops, 30,984 stormtroopers, 42,782 ship support staff, and 80,216 pilots and support crew. That means Jyn, K2, and the rest of those thuggish criminals were responsible for the deaths of 1.18 million sentient beings and 400,000 droids. Wait, that does not count the 46,785 officers, crew, and stormtroopers on each Star Destroyer, 2 of which went down in Rogue One. Moment of silence for the Intimidator and the Persecutor. That's adding another 93,570 deaths, not even counting the ground troops, the personnel for the Shield Gate. That is 1,272,863 sentient beings that criminal Jyn Erso murdered, and 400,000 droids. Support the troops. Support the troops. Okay. There we go. I've said my piece.
Yes, but they were all bad.
All right, let's talk about the crew. And let's talk about the cast, all the good stuff. Let me get that switched over to our actors. Oh, that's a problem.
Uh-oh.
That's a bit of an issue. There it is.
Oh, hey,
and hi. Robbie, lead us off with Mr. John Knoll.
So, yeah, A touched on this, and John Knoll really is the passion behind this. So John Knoll is just a visual arts legend, right? I mean, we're talking The Abyss, the Mission Impossible movies, Star Trek movies, the Star Wars prequels. I mean, he works on all of these. He wins an Oscar for one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I mean, John Knoll is huge, and he works at Industrial Light and Magic when Disney buys Lucasfilm, right, and owns all of this. And they were all saying, because, you know, they would send out ideas to the ILM guys to say, hey, work me up just a short little treatment of how this would look and what this would look like, right? So they got to see all the ideas that Disney was thinking about making Star Wars movies. And he was just kind of like, these all kind of suck. I mean, if I was making a movie, I would do this. I would essentially make a movie out of the crawl of the first Star Wars movie. I mean, think about it. It is a period of civil war, right? The rebel starships attacking from a hidden base have just won their first victory against the evil Galactic Empire. During the battle, rebel spies have managed to steal the secret drawings of the Empire's ultimate weapon, the Death Star. Okay. That's this movie. That's the original crawl of A New Hope back in 1977. Mm-hmm. And he just started talking about it with all the guys at ILM, and they're like, that's a good idea. Let me draw this up for you. Oh, it could look like this. And they just started kind of collaborating on this idea, eventually got it to a 30-minute pitch, and they're all like, John, you got to take this to Kathleen Kennedy. Mm-hmm. You've got to show her this. And she saw it, and she's like, that's it. That is the first trilogy movie we are going to make, and she put it into production immediately.
That's a great decision.
And John Noel, of course, worked on all the effects and all that kind of stuff, but it was just the guys who were on the ground, you know, the stormtroopers, if you will, who rose up and came up with this idea. And that's where Rogue One came from.
That's
from people who were already intrinsically involved with Star Wars and already loved Star Wars. And that's why it's such a great movie.
That's what you felt through every moment of this is all the Easter eggs, all the inside connections. You could tell when I saw Rogue One, I'm like, I don't know who the hell wrote this, but they live and breathe and die Star Wars. They've been in it forever. And you can tell, which also is apparent when you watch the other movies, like that's a different generation's take on the thing. But these guys kind of grew up with us and watched the same movies we did.
Well, and not only that, many of these people who worked on Rogue One literally worked on your favorite movies.
Yeah.
Like they've been at Industrial Light and Magic forever, and so they know the universe super well because they've been working in it forever.
And let's talk about something. We got the screenwriters, baby.
Yeah, we do. So I've got oh my goodness, there's so many screenwriters on this.
There are many.
many. So
it takes a village to write this movie, apparently.
So John Knoll has this 30-minute pitch. This is where it starts, and then a screenwriter named Gary Whitta is the person who takes over. He writes the first draft, the entire first draft of the screenplay, and came up with the film's title of Rogue One. He also works, this is the very first movie, as Robbie mentioned, where the yellow scroll doesn't happen at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is, of course, it's already been done.
I did not notice that.
Yeah. It's literally, it says it is, starts with I think Rogue One, a Star Wars story or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then it's over. Because the thing that we're doing is already known. We know exactly what's happening. We've been watching what's happening for 30 years.
If this is the first movie, there's no scroll to get you caught up. The thing with Star Wars was episode 4,
right?
And then even episode 1, you need the scroll to get you caught up to this. No, I've got that completely wrong.
And Gary Whitta absolutely wrote more than one scroll.
Okay,
but the reality was, like, you sort of exactly know what's going on because this is taking place breaths before Episode 4, A New Hope. It literally is a day or two before that.
This movie essentially is the scroll for A New Hope. I mean, this movie is the scroll. So they don't need a scroll. This is the scroll for the next movie.
Yeah. So Gary Whitta writes a treatment of it and also involves Chris Weitz, I think is how you say his name. Chris Weitz also does a pass with Gary, and they go through, and you can see this is Chris, and there are very lovely little moments in this where they name towns, they name characters, literally after nicknames. Chris Weitz does a Baze Malbus is actually named after his first D&D character, who was half-elf. Malbus was that character's name. And so you see this over and over again where they're putting tiny little touches. Chris Weitz lists A New Hope as his favorite movie and has his entire entrance into Hollywood, not just when he was working with Kathleen Kennedy and ILM. Like, it's always been a thing about him. So a lot of the times what you're seeing for Rogue One are people who adored this movie. Or this franchise. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Chris Weitz does a pass on Whitta's final draft of the script and makes it so the main characters all die at the end. Chris Whitta had written, and we don't know. This is confirmed that it's true that Gary Whitta had left it with a wedding right at the end of Rogue One.
Okay.
And we don't know who two were getting married, but it doesn't matter because Chris Weitz does a final draft. He makes sure everybody dies at the end of this movie.
Nice.
And
can I jump in real quick there, just to mention, I love the fact that there's no love story in this movie.
It's great.
You have
a
very strong female lead, and she and Cassian, they have a couple of moments, but it's never pronounced. They never kiss. They never do any of that. And if this wedding is probably going to be Jyn and Cassian, is who you think it's going to be, that would have ruined it. I love that she's a strong female character that doesn't need the love of a man to prove that she's important. You know 100%.
What I mean? And vice versa. It's important because this movie is about people willing to die for their cause. And there's no way they would have had to just jackboot that in there, like just shove in some kind of romance for anybody. Because all these people are like, well, I mean, I guess we knew this could always be a possibility. Am I willing to die for the right for other people to live?
Now, there is the other side of that, well, if we're about to die, we might as well screw. I mean, there is
that. I mean, that's what I would be doing.
What my brain would go to. Well, we got a 3-hour flight we got some time.
For sure. Like, if I were in Rogue One, I'd for sure be an NPC, like in the background, just like a bunny, like doing it.
We also thought about right at the end when Jyn and Cassian are sitting on the beach watching the shockwave come in. My first thought was like, that looks like it's about a minute and a half away. We might as well go for it. Let's knock it out right now and go out on top.
I've finished in far less time than that. I'm just saying. Right? All right, bring out the dill droid. Okay, here we go.
Oh, my goodness. This one's not a family show. Also, I guess I should have told you guys, spoilers.
Spoilers.
For Star Wars.
Right,
actually, no spoiler.
Hang on.
There is no dill droid. That is not a spoiler.
So after it's all said and done, and Chris Weitz, who, by the way, was born on the exact same day as both of you gentlemen.
I did not know that.
I was born on exactly the same day as you guys. After that's all done, established filmmaker Tony Gilbert is brought in to oversee the reshoots and reworks and rewriting of some of the scenes. Tony's work in reshaping the film through the editing process created new scenes, and it meant he earned a script writing credit. Here's the interesting thing. So much was changed after Gilroy started rewrites that everything in the trailer, the original trailer, doesn't show up in
like
the movie.
the TIE fighter looking down Jyn,
doesn't
stuff
make
like
it
that.
into the final theatrical cut.
Yeah, them running on the beach, that never happens. Right. They essentially rewrote the whole third act, and then thank goodness, because that third act is freaking phenomenal, right?
It's
the
so
end
good.
of this movie is so well done.
So much fighting. Yeah. And then we move on to director Gareth Edwards, who, that's Tony Mascaro. There's Gareth Edwards right there.
Hey, Tony.
He did a lot of stuff to try and get that 70s gestalt back. He asked the extras to grow out their sideburns and mustaches to fit the 70s aesthetic. He was also instructed the department to use only elements that would have been available in 1977 to get the movie look contemporary to Star Wars. Flight control animations, for example, had to be kept as simple as possible, resisting the urge to make them too flashy. And let's point this out. We got to see this.
Oh,
yes,
we got to see that several times, and it was great. It was great.
And they did not do that in the prequels, right? It was jarring to go from the end of the prequel where all of a sudden they throw in Captain Antilles' ship and everything looks basic compared to everything we've seen for 3 movies. They should have done what Gareth Edwards did. And that's why this movie also works, because it fits in where it's supposed to fit in.
And this is an interesting thing, because if you think about it sort of in an isolated way, the movie has absolutely nothing to do with 1976. Nothing at all, obviously. We know this. Yet, what Rob just said is totally true. What we notice is the absence of that thought in the prequel movies. And it's, we do a lot of book design. And book design is such a beautiful art, because the only way you recognize it is when you see bad book design. You never notice when it's right. And it's the same thing that happened here. You don't quite notice that they all had sideburns, that the CGI is a little back, sort of held back and stuff. And it really, I agree with you, Rob, it changed everything. It made you able to just watch and embrace it and not compare and contrast.
And that was a big decision. He didn't want it to be too flashy. He didn't want to overshadow the movie this directly leads into and have the super high tech, and then you go watch A New Hope and it's super low tech. It would be jarring. He did a couple of cool things. A number of sets designed to be shot in 350 degrees so he could just organically have the film and cast and crew do whatever they want in the set. The crew even had to wear Star Wars costumes in case the camera rotated too quickly and they got caught in a shot. So you missed that.
Love it.
that Game of Thrones Starbucks cup, not going to happen here because everybody's like, imagine the crew like, wait, we not only get to be part of a shot of a Star Wars movie, we get to cosplay the whole fucking time.
Yeah, exactly.
That must have been amazing.
Ziegler, you and I would have done that, and we would desperately have tried to inch into the shot every frickin' chance we could. Oh,
you would be like, did you guys? I was supposed to report here with this. Does anybody need this?
And one other super cool thing, which I didn't know watching until I got notes from Robbie. Gareth Edwards and his creative team discovered some old film canisters while rummaging around the Lucasfilm warehouses. It was unused original Star Wars footage. The discovery led to the inclusion of unused Episode 4 material and featuring Red Leader and Gold Leader in the movie. And Rob likes that because Rob is Plaid Leader. That's right.
Well,
that's exactly correct. Plaid.
So we're actually going to move on to the cast.
Yep.
The cast, of course, starts with, this is Felicity Jones, who plays Jyn. Felicity Jones, if you are British, you probably have you've grown up with her. She was a child actress, started acting pretty much full-time on the radio and TV at around 12 years old.
Okay.
If you are an American and you are old enough like me to remember Jodie Foster growing up, she stopped for a while and went to university. So did Felicity Jones. But other than that, she's been pretty much working since she was 12 years old. This is, of course, her with her Diego Luna, her Rogue One co-star. She was acting pretty steadily. And then in 2014, The Theory of Everything came out, which is a Stephen Hawking biopic, and she played Stephen Hawking, one of Stephen Hawking's wives. And she was super, super well recognized by the critics for that. She got a Golden Globe nomination, a SAG, a Screen Actors Guild nomination, a BAFTA nomination, and an Academy Award for Best Actress nomination in 2014. And she literally walks off of that into Rogue One.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
And so, it's interesting.
Into a galaxy far, far away.
Because if you grew up in a world that had Star Wars in it as an actor, and then you are going to be the main face of a movie.
Yeah.
I'm not sure there's a better way to walk into that as opposed as being so well rewarded for the thing you did last.
It must have been so overwhelming for her to be like, everything's, oh my God, my career's rocking. This is great. What Star Wars? What? Sorry.
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Well, and
lead. Okay. What?
And then knowing that like Runa Mara and Kate Mara, there were so many people who auditioned for this lead role, and then you get it. You're like, whoo, okay, let's go. And I think she did a great job.
And Rob,
pretty decent year for Felicity Jones, I would say.
Rob, tell us about her co-star, Mr. Diego Luna.
Yeah, he plays Cassian Andor, the captain, and really kind of, the male lead of this, who starts off not trusting and begrudgingly working with Jyn. And then at the end, he's the reason everyone kind of, goes with her and really starts this rebellion. Diego Luna, as many Mexican actors did, he's also a singer, a director, a producer, but he started in the telenovelas, right? I mean, that's where most Mexican actors would start. But then, Y Tu Mama Tambien, Open Range, Milk, Rudo Crisi, the Havana Nights Dirty Dancing sequel.
Of course he can dance.
I mean,
Desperado.
Yeah, of course he can. But he's everywhere. And he's got a huge range. He's playing, dramas. He's playing comedies. He's playing, telenovelas, which are all over the top kind of stuff, right? And what I really loved is that they didn't have him change his accent, right? I mean, we're in this universe where pretty much every human has either a British or an American accent. Right? Now, all the other races have many different accents and weird ways of talking. Why wouldn't some humanoids who grew up in a different area or a different planet or whatever have slightly different accents?
For sure.
And that's what they did. And I think it's fantastic. And he carries this movie so well. He's first. I don't trust her. I don't want to work with her. And then you see it change as she proves herself again and again, to the point where now he's on her side and he is going to do whatever he can because he now realizes she is the one. And she's the one who can say it and get us all moving in the right direction.
And that's part of the taught script writing combined with excellent acting and good direction is he does that 180 as a character. His character does that 180 and it's believable. It's there's no point where like, oh, now he's good. Okay, now we think she's awesome. Well, of course, I never had that moment.
Right,
it all made, it was granular. It was natural. Progressive and natural. It all made perfect sense, which when you do that in a 120-minute screenplay is quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, well, and here's something to be said. I mentioned this about the crew as well. There is, it can't be denied that the crew and the people who wrote Rogue One and who envisioned Rogue One are dyed-in-the-wool Star Wars peeps. Diego Luna is no different, but he is also a dyed-in-the-wool actor. His mom is a British actor. She dies in a car accident when he's 2 years old. So he gains a whole British family who natively speak English. And he grows up in Mexico, I think Mexico City, with his dad, who is to this day the premier set designer and set director in Mexico. And so he is surrounded by arts and artists and acting his entire life, and also has an entire family who are native English speakers. So he grows up speaking very natural English. And this actually serves him a million. We've seen him in a dozen movies that he's bringing his culture in an accessible way. So I love that about this.
And Cassian did not want to work with Jin. There was somebody else who did not want to work with Jin. And that, of course, is... I had one more of him. And that, of course, is Alan Tudyk as K2SO, who completely stole the show.
My heart.
So good.
I love him.
What Alan Tudyk is so exceptional at is taking a character actor role and just walking off the set. It's like, everybody loves him the most. Everybody loves him the most.
But this is true of everything. This is true of Tucker and Dale.
Yep.
This is true of Firefly. We've seen this thousands of times.
Something about that dude.
And good luck. More power to you.
He initially turned down the role because the start of the filming clashed with pre-production of his comedy series Con Man, when Gareth Edwards told him that filming was being moved back by a month in July 2015, he agreed to join the production.
And this is a cool shot you have up here, because this is him in his motion capture suit.
That's him in his.
This is him in his motion
capture
capture
suit. He was just
suit.
being stylish.
No. This is it. That's I like that shot that you chose, because this is how he became. And there's an interesting side effect here. Anthony Daniels met Alan Tudyk on the set of this. Anthony Daniels, if you don't know, played C-3PO.
Yep.
And literally walked up to Alan Tudyk and said, "You know what? Fuck you." Because Anthony Daniels had to be in his suit.
In the C-3PO suit.
In the C-3PO
suit. In the frickin' desert.
For many movies. And Alan Tudyk is wearing this outfit that you see here.
Looks comfortable.
Wearing spandex with dots on it.
Exactly. Alan Tudyk to this day says it is one of the highest zeniths of his career that Anthony Daniels walked up to him. The first thing he said was, "Fuck you."
And of course, KS2O gets to deliver the line, "I got a bad feeling about this," but he gets cut off before the end of the famous quote. And this marked the 10th time that the line has been uttered in a Star Wars movie. I don't know why everybody has a bad feeling. Things work out pretty darn good. Almost. Well, not in this one.
I was going to...
wait a minute.
Not in this one.
No, but they never go to plan. You're going to have a bad feeling because we're going to have to frickin' improvise half of this. So, yeah.
And of course,
you're right. K2SO has all the best
all the great lines.
He is. If there's a good line, other than like, "I am the Force and the Force is with me."
Right.
Other than that, every other memorable line from this movie comes out of that droid, and it is fantastic.
He literally, there's a couple of moments of comic relief, only a couple, that do not involve him. He is exceptional. He's so good in this. And of course, A and I just finished up watching season 1 of his starring role in Resident Alien, which I will not lie, I completely looked down my nose at.
I know.
When we went to watch this. And A and I have had a couple of experiences. We go to watch a show and I'm like, well, this is going to suck balls, whatever. And then I watch it and it turns out to be great. This was another one because I was like, bro, they already did Mork and Mindy. It's fine. It was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, we did like a handshake. You've avoided watching it?
I've been avoiding it. Yeah, I've been avoiding it for the same reason. Because I looked at it, I love Alan Tudyk. I don't want to watch something I'm going to hate.
Right, you don't want like a bad Starman remake. You don't want any of that. So we made an agreement. Literally, actually shook hands like the Little Rascals. You know, we're going to watch one. And then if it sucks, you don't have to watch anymore. And then we watched the whole thing. It was great.
I will tell you that he's fantastic in it. The special effects are really good, which was surprising. It is not. It's got a lot of heartwarming moments, but it's also got a lot of cursing, a lot of very evil moments. And the supporting cast is freaking fantastic. The supporting cast is great.
And without doing too much of a spoiler, I will say we often see sort of feel-good aliens. And Alan Tudyk's
is not one
character as Harry in Resident Alien. Yeah, might not fall on the spectrum as a good alien.
He's not a good guy.
That actually makes me want to watch it more.
Yeah, it was super fun. And he does a great job as always.
Let's move on to the other guy I thought stole the show. Now, we've seen that the stage acting in Star Wars movies sometimes is not all that great. Depends what the movie is.
Yeah.
And then they brought in this gentleman, Mr. Donnie Yen.
Absolutely.
Tell me about it.
I think you say this as Chirrut Imwe. I don't really know.
Yeah, you got it.
He plays Chirrut Imwe. He initially turned down the role when it was offered to him, but his kids got real excited about the idea of him being in a Star Wars movie, and so he joined the cast, which I absolutely love. They changed his mind. It was also his idea for Chirrut to be blind during blind in general. Gareth Edwards, the director, thought that was fine and cool and ran with it.
Two questions. I got two questions about this. Number one, blind like Daredevil's blind. It doesn't impact him whatsoever. No problem at all. So it's a little confusing. Number two, was this guy a Jedi who would put down the lightsaber or not? Was he not a Jedi? I was very confused by that. Rob, do you have any theories on that?
No, he is not a Jedi.
Yeah, I don't think
he is just someone that, and possibly because of his blindness, is so in tune with the Force that he can feel the things around him. But he never talks about training. He never talks about honing the skill. It just kind of comes naturally to him. So I suppose had the Jedi... Remember, this is a chunk of time when the Jedi aren't around. They aren't training new people. They've been dead and gone for years. Okay. So had they caught him as a child, they likely would have realized how in touch with the Force he is, and so would have trained him. But there really are no Jedi at this time. Right. So no, he's not a Jedi. Interesting side note, Jyn Erso's mother, who we see in the opening scene, original script, she was a hidden Jedi and fought the stormtroopers. But they took that out because they wanted this to be more about normal people. So this is really the first Star Wars movie that doesn't have a Jedi at its core, which I think is good.
Yeah, cool. Or almost a Jedi at all until the very last moments, pretty much. Really. Yeah, and what's interesting about this is I think you said the thing I think, that just like Daredevil grows up intentionally learning sort of echolocation in the framework that he has, I think that Donnie's character does the same thing. He just doesn't know the thing that he's echolocating off is the Force.
Okay, that makes
he
sense.
doesn't know that that's what he's doing. He just knows he's doing the right thing.
It's exceptional.
Which is exactly how the Force works. So,
speaking of which, I want to throw this in now while you're talking about Donnie's, because there's this great scene. I wrote it in the notes later. When they all get captured and have hoods put over them, all the other actors stumble at some point because they have hoods over their head. He just walks normally.
It's perfect. It's so good.
He never stumbles. He never bumps into anything. Nothing. Because he's kind of used. Like, why are you putting a hood over my head?
I mean, if you got to do that, fine. Yeah. And this is exactly it. These are the little moments, just like Gareth Edwards making all the choices for everybody to seem 70s-ish that you never quite think about because they just instinctively make sense to you. And it was such a beautiful thing. The only other point I want to make about this particular character is Kathleen Kennedy and John Knoll decided that this character should be either Donnie or Jet Li. Those were the first two people that they were going to seek out. They started with Donnie because he was less expensive by about $6 million for his going rate. And first I mentioned, he turned them down and then he accepted, which is great because then they had a little more room in there.
And I will say, as a huge fan of combat cinema and as a fan who gets super frustrated when you can't show a fight scene or all you do is do shaky cam. Donnie Yen's fight scenes, I don't know who the choreographer was. I should have looked that up. But Donnie Yen's physical combat ability to make it all look real and fast. There's none of this, as I gather up, here's a stormtrooper like going, I guess I'll just wait here to get hit in the chest. It's pop, 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 pop. It's exceptional. He's a brilliant combat actor. Absolutely brilliant.
And one thing that he does that Jet Li also does, which we also see quite a lot in Korean cinema, is they move very fast and they don't, while they are working, when they are in action, they are, all their energy is doing that. And then you see him in the off moments like...
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what you would really do. You wouldn't be like, I'm about to come at you. You would literally do that and then breathe later.
And Rob, as far as acting credentials go, the breakout star from this movie moving forward in the world has got to be Riz Ahmed as Bodhi Rook.
Yeah, so Bodhi Rook is the pilot who is defecting, and he's the one that brings the message to Saw Gerrera that really starts this whole thing moving, right? I mean, the rebellion doesn't happen if Garen Issa, who's Jin's father, doesn't send this pilot with the message, right? But Riz Ahmed, hugely regarded actor. It's really interesting. He was just nominated for an Oscar. I mean, just this last week for the amazing movie The Sound of Metal, which is about a drummer who starts losing his hearing. I mean, you can just imagine like a punk metal drummer, and it's such a personal story. I did not even realize they were the same actor. I mean,
they look quite a lot different.
Did not connect to me at all. Yeah. So Riz, he has gotten, nominations across the board: Daytime Emmys, National Board of Review, Independent Spirit Awards, London Film Critics Award, British Actor of the Year, nominations now for Academy Awards, Golden Globes, Emmy Awards, Screen Actors Guild, British Independent Film Awards. I mean, this guy is just huge.
Stud.
Yeah,
he's just
so talented,
just
so
amazing.
Talented.
But him, he was in the HBO miniseries The Night Of, which was really a huge leaping stone for him because that was his first really critically acclaimed role. He was kind of a working actor to that point, and now the world's exploded for him. And this Oscar nomination is going to be taken. It's cool. Also, he is the first ever Muslim to be nominated for an acting award by the Academy. So that's another huge.
And it's an interesting.
On top of everything else, he's a rapper. So,
and an acclaimed rapper.
Yes, what?
Yeah.
He's an oh my God. I have to check that out.
I think this is interesting because he's, as it happens, his path to Oscar nomination, to Golden Globe nomination, were parts that resonated with him, but they weren't specifically Muslim parts, or that is irrelevant to every character that got him where he is in an awards way. And this is the thing we always talk, like in general, we talk about, like, it should be so commonplace that it doesn't have to be a special note.
Right.
And that's what he did. And more power to him.
And Rob, tell us about, of course, the great, illustrious Mr. Forrest Whitaker.
Yeah, so the cool thing, Forrest Whitaker plays Saw Gerrera, who is, the person that eventually raises Jyn Erso, right? And he's part of the rebellion, but honestly, this is such an interesting time for the rebellion, right? Because it's really more of a committee at this point, and Saw Gerrera is going out there blowing shit up. And they're like, whoa, Saw, buddy, we're not blowing shit up. We're just having meetings right now, man. We're passing like donuts and cookies around. What are you blowing shit up? To the point where they're like, oh, he's too extreme. So they kind of excommunicate Saw Gerrera, the character, from the actual rebellion, when it turns out he was right. That's the stuff they needed to be doing. But they got Forrest Whitaker, of course, Oscar nomination, and I mean, some of the amazing movies. You want to talk about a guy with range, right? I mean, he's everywhere, from Fast Times at Ridgemont High to Way of the Samurai and The Crying Game. And he plays Idi Amin. That's what he got nominated for in the last King of Scotland, right?
Yeah, he won.
And he won the award. I mean, this is what we're talking about. And it's Saw is interesting because while they were writing this movie, they had to come up with, we want to come up with some crusty guy who's part of the rebellion, but he's almost too much part of the rebellion, and we know he's going to be in bad physical shape. And they started trying to come up with a character, and then somebody was just like, well, there's this Saw Gerrera character that's in one of the Star Wars cartoons, and it sounds like he's exactly the guy you're looking for. So they watched him in the cartoon and went, holy shit, they already created this guy. So he's like the first character they brought from the Star Wars cartoons, which are all canon, and brought him into the live action world, which is freaking fantastic. And Forrest Whitaker, it's a small role in here. It's obviously pivotal, but he's really the first recognizable face you see early in this movie. And it just brings some gravitas with it. And he played this one so well. I love this quote about him loving to play Saw. So this is a direct quote. He's a character who's fighting against oppression and those dark forces that were trying to harm humanity, yet decided to take on some of their practices in order to be able to win, because he thought the final result was more important. So for him, the ends justified the means. And we hear Cassian later in his speech at the end when he's talking about all of us have done stuff for this rebellion. And now to hear these, essentially politicians say it wasn't worth it and we're all going to stand down. Screw that, Jyn. We're with you.
Right.
We have to know there was a reason why we were really bad people and that the end result is it. that's how the rebellion gets started.
Okay.
So, and it kind of starts, Saw Gerrera shows them the way to do that.
Yeah, and I love that Forrest Whitaker took this part. There are several people who've done this, of course, because he wants to be part of the Star Wars universe, but he has to do it in a way that feels authentic to him, because that's how he chooses all of his parts. And I will just say, before I continue on to questions, I will say, if you haven't seen Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai, get it.
We'll check that out.
Yeah. So there are, moving on, there are a couple of famous faces who are probably not worth being called out entirely because of the size of their part. James Earl Jones is on the screen right now, being one of them. Can you talk about a couple? There's two at least that we need to kind of recognize. At least maybe three.
Yeah, James shows up. You've got Darth Vader near the end, just a couple minutes of screen time, but who else are you going to have voice Darth Vader?
You can't.
Right?
It's illegal. It's illegal.
It's fantastic.
Illegal.
I mean, honestly, you wonder, and I hope this is a long time coming, but what a thing. Yes, that's right. The Force is strong with this one. At some point, Darth Vader has to stop being used because James Earl Jones won't be available anymore.
Sure.
It's
you know
true.
what I mean? And I don't want someone else doing his voice. So, yeah, James Earl Jones comes in. And then the other one is Anthony Daniels.
It was such a hero.
We already
Look at
spoke
him.
about. Yeah. So now this is cool because we have, the short scene with R2-D2 and C-3PO at the end of this movie. Anthony Daniels is the only actor who has an appearance in every single Star Wars live action movie. All right. So you have to count his voice work in Phantom Menace, right? Because that was all CGI when they're first building C-3PO. And he's not C-3PO in the Solo movie, which everyone should ignore, by the way, but he plays another character. They let him play another small character so he could still be in that movie.
What
but yeah, he is in every single live action Star Wars movie, which is freaking cool.
And the only human, the only actor who's done that.
The only one. Absolutely. The only one. Yeah.
And I wonder if is C-3PO the only character who's in R2-D2 who's in all the movies? I don't know.
I'm not sure R2 is in all the movies.
I don't think they're in all.
Yeah.
But Rob, you spoke about Saw Gerrera, and there's a couple other throwbacks to the old movies, especially the first movie. Tell us about that.
Well, so are you talking about the?
Well, we got Wedge. Well, I want to talk about a couple of. A couple of the amazing thing. The two guys that Luke and Obi-Wan get into a fight with in the cantina are just have a quick moment that I lost my shit when I saw the Rogue One. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm like, oh, this is a good movie. This is a good movie. I'm like, those are the two dudes from the cantina.
Those are the two guys.
Those are the two guys.
That's the walrus-headed guy. That's him.
It's friggin' awesome.
Because this is the one moment in the whole movie where you, as a not 11-year-old in the theater in 1977, you get pulled out in the best way and go, oh, wait a minute, this is literally the day before A New Hope.
Yeah, it's really
6 hours before A New Hope starts. Yeah. And this is the way that tethers you to that moment, I think.
Yeah. And so you mentioned Wedge Antilles. So he is by the way, Wedge Antilles is almost the most important character in the original trilogy. Okay. I mean, he survives every battle. He's actually the one that takes the shot, not Lando Calrissian, in the Millennium Falcon. Wedge takes the shot that blows up the second Death Star.
Is that right?
I'm just saying, he's in, yes, he's very important. But we get Wedge Antilles, we hear his voice. He's like the PA announcer at one of the Rebel bases, so we hear his voice. So he even gets a bit of a throw out in this one. And Warwick Davis, he played the Ewok Wicket, right? In the in Return of the Jedi. He's Latif Sayubi. He's one of Saw Gerrera's militiamen, but he has done that before as well. He was somebody in Jabba the Hutt's court. I mean, he has played a lot of different small characters in the different movies. So it's cool that they gave him a part and they also let him be in this one. That's there's just like things fold over each other in the Star Wars universe, and the actors are geeky about these movies like we are, like you said, right? They want to be in these movies, and there's a reason why. Yeah,
I bet a lot of people would just absolutely do it for free. They'd be like, look, if I can just be in a Star Wars movie, that'd be fine. I would like to point out, now we're going to move on to general notes. We've got a few minutes left, 10, 15 minutes left. And general notes, the first thing I would like to point out is I am a Star Wars fan, but I clearly am not a diehard, reading all the blogs Star Wars fan. Sure. I thought literally up until I After watching Rogue One last night and preparing this script, I was like, well, it's a good movie, but why didn't they name all of the Bothans? Because a lot of good Bothans died to get this information. I went and looked it up. If you're like me and you're wondering where the F are the Bothans, that line let's see. What was the line? Oh, I already said it. A lot of good Bothans. Many Bothans died to get this information. That's from Return of the Jedi. That is not from A New Hope. Mm-hmm. That is about a bunch of people got the plans to do the Death Star in Return of the Jedi. So I hope we get that movie somewhere. Also, last thing I'll say about this.
You want to see some dead Bothans. Basically, what you want to see is dead Bothans.
I want to see a lot of dead Bothans.
All right.
Star Wars is addicted to Death Stars. Let's go over the stats. Death Star 1, Star Wars. Death Star 2, Return of the Jedi. Star Killer Base, The Force Awakens. Sith Star Destroyers, The Rise of Skywalker. Jesus Christ.
Well, here's the thing. What I don't understand, and we've talked, there are blogs forever about the contractors on the Death Star, for example, or who made the architecture of the Death Star. What I want to know is why these mofos keep saying like, oh, I get it. It was super easily defeated. We literally spent our entire budget on one device that can only detonate in one place. Let's do that 6 more times. Doesn't make any sense to me.
I do love, though, that because, one of the arguments against the original Star Wars was, well, how did it have a flaw to begin with? That's what this movie explains, which I think is pretty cool.
And it's beautiful.
That's what I'm talking about. The threading that went into this and the amount of work by people who live and breathe the thing. You watch Star Wars, you're like, okay, the trash compactor can blow up the whole goddamn thing. Okay, pal, I'm going to let that MacGuffin slide and just enjoy the movie. Because that's what it was in the original movie. It was just this little throwaway thing. Yep. Probably some interns like, what if the trash compactor doesn't work? And Lucas like, go with it. We're busy. We're behind schedule. That's fine. Let's do it. And then the writers for this went through and not only took that MacGuffin and made it legit, made it the cornerstone of the entire plot. Right. So the father of Jyn Erso, it's not just a thing they found out. It is intentionally embedded and hidden. Yep. They established it's intentional, it's embedded, and he hid it from everybody because he's the guy who designed it. I was like, the first time I saw that, I'm like, holy shit. Genius. That is some grade A script writing right there. Was fantastic.
Yeah, and, Jyn's father is modeled on Robert Oppenheimer because he had that same problem. He created a device that could destroy humanity and knew he had to do it and knew it was necessary and knew he'd done it and wished it wouldn't happen.
Yeah, the guilt.
Wished it wouldn't detonate. Right? Yeah, like I know we need to make
destroyer of worlds. Yeah, exactly right.
I am become death.
How do you live with that?
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Exactly right. So I love that. I do love. We did talk about so many times. Sorry, Rob. We talked so many times about this. All the people, all the crew, the cast, the writers, everybody for this movie are huge Star Wars fans and wanted to be honest and relatable to A New Hope because they knew how close together chronologically these were. The costume designers themselves also, head costume designer David Crossman, stated some of the original costumes from A New Hope are repurposed in this one as well because, of course, they're still in archives.
I don't care. I want Obi-Wan's sweat on me. I want Laurence Olivier's sweat on me from 1976. I don't care. I'm putting that damn stinky ass thing on. Hell yes. Hell yes.
And that includes Darth Vader's costume, which was meticulously patterned after his look in the original. One thing to point out, there's so many love letters in this, one of which the firing sequence of the Death Star is copied exactly frame for frame from the original Star Wars. That's amazing. The kind of stuff where you're like, oh, these guys who made this movie, they are just like us and have just watched this 1,000 times.
They also knew that if they did it differently, some geek on some blog would have pointed out, and we all would have liked it that they pointed that out, right?
Sure.
Yeah,
Same thing, the blueprints, right? That original sequence when we see the blueprints in A New Hope, and they're rotating around. Apparently, none of the drawings from that still existed. So they sat down and went frame by frame of that original footage of the blueprints and redrew it by hand, frame by frame. because they, again, knew that if it was a little bit off, they'd get called out. And they didn't want anyone to say, you should have spent more time making this movie better. So they just spent the time right at the beginning to make this movie better.
They know they're going to get crushed for it. This I did not know till we got these notes. This first big screen Star Wars movie that John Williams has now recorded the score for.
Yeah.
Michael Giacchino composed the music for Rogue One. I thought he did a great job. He previously composed music for J.J. Abrams' Star Trek movies, so he was the only composer to have composed film scores for both Star Wars and the Star Trek franchises.
It's lovely. Yeah, you guys may know I have worked with Adam Savage along the way here and there, and he's worked with Michael Giacchino, so I happen to know him. I know firsthand, he was stupid excited about getting to work on Star Wars. And I know that because I didn't know him back then in 2016, but I know him now, and he brings it up every chance he can because it's just so cool, you know? He's this huge, powerful, big in, people want him to work on their things, and he's just the coolest geeky guy. And I love that so many people on this casting crew are just huge Star Wars geeks. It's such a nice thing.
I like to hear the stories. I like to hear the stories when the cast gets along. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you hear the stories where they hated each other, made a great movie, but freaking hated each other. Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Not the case. So while they were shooting in the Maldives, which is the whole Battle of Scarif scene, because they got to be on the water, on the sand, right? Alan Tudyk, Diego Luna, and Felicity Jones all lived together on a boat while they were there in the Maldives shooting. That's what you want to hear, that they bonded, they were friends, they lived together, they worked together, even if it was just for a few weeks. I love that
fabulous
kind of stuff.
Fabulous.
That's
and you want to think that they're sending each other memes on Facebook.
To this day, they're doing that. Yeah.
And truly, who wouldn't want to live with Alan Tudyk? I'm just saying.
Come on.
Yeah. And I have one other fun fact. Scarif, the name Scarif for the place in the Battle of Scarif, that actually came from the two screenwriters, Gary Witka and Chris, watching Gareth, the director, order Starbucks coffee with his British accent. And he went and said, "It's Gareth. It's Gareth." And what showed up on his Starbucks cup was Scarif.
No way.
Nope, it's true. It's true.
That's amazing.
It's true. And they were like, whatever, we're putting that in. We're making it a town.
That's in the movie.
Yeah.
So one thing, there's a lot of stuff in this movie that's going to hold up forever. A lot, especially the panning shots of planets, all the landscape shots. There's so much in this movie that is done so close to reality, it will still look great 80 years from now.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing that will not look great 80 years from now, which is sad because it's such a technological achievement, is the CGI characters. Peter Cushing redone and Carrie Fisher. The level of technology that goes into making them look as good as they did and 5 years ago, staggering. It's a huge achievement. 20 years from now, kids are going to watch and be like, that's the most fake thing I ever saw. But
and I'm going to give you maybe Carrie Fisher, since it's such a short thing.
Yeah.
We might get away with that for a while.
For a little while.
But not Peter Cushing.
And it's kind of redoing a scene we already have locked in our heads.
Yeah,
you know
but it's so true. We're not going to.
Yeah, and also that stuff looks better on the big screen than it does on the way that we're going to watch this movie for the rest of our lives. So
right.
Yeah.
And
you're right, Scott.
Carrie Fisher passed away over a week after the film's release in the United States. Mm-hmm. She was unable to see the film before death and reportedly squealed at joy. Oh, she was able. She was able to see the film.
Yeah, she saw it.
And she squealed at joy at seeing the younger version of herself as Princess Leia at the end of the movie. That's got to be a trip. Like you are way up there in years. You're like, I ain't got many days left. But back in the day, I was really something. And then you're on the screen, you're like, oh snap, that's me. That's me. I'm good.
Look how high my boobs are.
I always, in my head, I think she looks at that one scene, which is so beautifully placed in the movie because she has one line, one word.
Yeah.
Hope. That's all she says, right? And of course, what happens literally 6 hours later? A new hope.
A New Hope.
Which is another threading where they worked Hope into it 3 separate times in order to lead into A New Hope. And that's the kind of granular detail of people who just adore something and want it to work.
In my head, I always think like she looked at that and obviously didn't know that she was not going to see the rest of it and was like, yeah, okay, I see the Princess General in this because she has already done some of the work for the movies that come after, of course. So she gets to see like, sure, I see I see the Princess General
Now,
here.
this is since they've got Carrie Fisher so mapped in on CGI, and it's only going to get better and better. She still has plot threads to resolve in future movies. They had a chance to kill off her character and do it right, and they chose to have her do force magic in space and come back to the ship.
I want to reach to the screen and punch you just for even bringing that up. But okay,
sorry. But now we have to wonder, how close are we to moving a step beyond the uncanny valley and being able to see CGI Carrie Fisher do small bits in the future Star Wars movies, and how close are we to not even needing friggin' actors anymore for the most part?
You know, I find that, we deal a lot with that with narration and books, and we're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
We have optical character recognition, we have mapping of an electronic voice, and it still sounds a little like this when that happens. So I think we're not super close, but I don't disagree that we're maybe not even a decade away.
Grand Moff Tarkin is okay-ish.
Yeah, it's okay.
You know what I mean? But the voice isn't right, and the face looks like plastic, so you're right. I mean, there's still, but a few more generations where they can make the skin look real, and they get the voice modulation down. Yeah, we're probably closer now than we ever have
After watching Rogue One, which is 5 years old, I think we're within 10 years away from where they'll be able to put up a character and you'll be able to tell the difference, but not so much that it will take you out of the story. And you're seeing this a lot in video games now. The ability to portray real life movement in video games and real life facial expressions has come so far. And now we're on the precipice of being able to bring back old characters that haven't actually died in the continuity and having them do smaller parts in the movies. And
we mentioned Darth Vader's voice, and since that is already electronically modulated, it'll probably be a lot easier for them to just recreate, a computer saying his lines in his voice. And because it's supposed to sound kind of robotic, it might work.
We already have that with, I don't know if you guys have ever listened to some of the deep fake audio, where you can just upload a script and hear it said in the tone, cadence, and volume of Donald Trump, Barack Obama, etc. It is friggin' indiscernible. So as far as they've got James Earl Jones, they're totally covered. Vader's going to be with us for all eternity, and it'll be James Earl Jones' voice. It'll sound like him. They're probably already doing work. They're probably doing impulse response and capturing his voice. So that'll be cool.
What's interesting about that is that is not a thing that when James Earl Jones signed on to be Darth Vader, he would have ever thought about. So there's a legality there. I'm interested to see how that works
That's
too.
A good
we
point.
can take
That's
you
really
and make you live forever and, credit your estate.
Well, I think,
or whatever.
I think pretty sure with all the merchandising and everything else, especially after the first 3 movies, the Star Wars Lucasfilm was smart enough to make sure nobody gets royalties for any adaptations, merchandising, things of that nature. And Disney does it. Disney, if you sign that contract with Disney, they get to use your face, likeness, name, voice, anything they want in perpetuity. In any medium, and you will never get paid for it. That is how Disney works.
Except you signed on to do a specific script or a specific character. So you own the choices you made. And those will still belong to James Earl Jones, just like even if we sell your script to Disney, the characters, the IP still belongs to you.
They will not buy it unless they take all those rights.
Yeah, what I'm saying is he never signed up for that in 1977 because it wasn't a thing.
No, but
did he?
He has. I can bet he has for all of the following movies. He might be a legacy.
Probably. Right, probably.
He'd be like, here, James, sign this. Like, oh no, I don't think I will. And they're like, God damn
wait
it,
a minute.
We got to put him in anyways.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I guarantee when he had to do 45 minutes of voice work back in 1975. I guarantee he wasn't thinking, well, I better cover my ass here because in 40 years I'm going to be doing the same damn thing over again. I got a feeling that didn't come across James Earl Jones's mind.
Nelson McClintock in the chat, somebody asked, was it really six hours before? Was this 6 hours before A New Hope? And Nelson says this takes place just for A New Hope and leads up to the 10 minutes before that classic film begins. There's no specified number of how long there is between the movies. And which, when you make these things, you don't want to do that. You want to leave that a little amorphous.
Right, and that's actually an anonymous quote from the Hollywood Reporter.
Okay.
Yeah, like they're saying, like, we can't say just what you said. We can't say this, but it's essentially the closest you can get to being a prequel.
The last thing I'll say about this is stuff like that amorphous, how long between, which characters are where. This is stuff that Hollywood and Disney wants to intentionally obfuscate, because I learned this writing for the Aliens franchise. I wrote a short story for Aliens that was called Dangerous Prey, and in it I talked to entomology PhDs and biology PhDs and combat veterans, and basically explained everything you saw in Alien and Aliens as far as alien communication. What's the reason for the long head? All this stuff, I defined all of it
in this universe, with this universe and this science,
real physics, because Aliens is our universe just extrapolated out. And they came back and like, no, we're not. You can't explain all this. I'm like, why not? Everybody wants to know how this works. Here it is. Like, if you explain it, there's no longer a sense of mystery. What's more important, now we have to map everything to that thing that you wrote. That is canon. And we can't do new stuff without doing all this problem. So we would rather leave that as a gray area. And it was only after, I was on the business side of it, I'm like, okay, now I get it. That makes sense. I get it.
I know we have to wrap up. We're past an hour, but I do want to say Rob brought up what I think is the most important sort of artifact trivia piece of Rogue One is that George Lucas watched it and loved it.
Oh,
and
that's
that
great.
matters
That's
so much
wonderful.
to me. That means a whole lot to me. That's really cool.
If you're the producer, you're the writer, you're the director, you get that stamp. You just went, from 6 p.m. to midnight. I mean, that's a
sploosh. That is a straight
really
sploosh.
excited about what just happened.
I don't even know if you need to go to midnight. That's just it's a 6 p.m. sploosh. Done. Done.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much for joining us. This it has been such a fun cast.
So much.
So much. And we're definitely we're going to talk about movies that we don't have 30 years worth of love for sometime soon anyway. So we are actually going to be back on May 1st with one of those. We're going to watch
May 15th.
I'm sorry, May 15th. Sorry about that. We're going to be watching John Wick, the original John Wick, because John Wick 4 comes out on 5/20.
Talk about another franchise where they actually put time into fight choreography, practicing, rehearsing, and doing fast-paced fight scenes where everything is logical from one side to the other. I think John Wick is responsible for saving us from shaky cam, solely responsible for saving us from crappy shaky cam fight scenes. So I adore it, and I'm looking forward to that. Rob, you looking forward to that one?
Well, listen, people keep asking me if I'm back. And up till now, I haven't really had an answer. But now, I'm thinking I'll be back for that one.
I love you so much. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you back here on the 15th.
May the force be with you.
All right, buddy. Later.
Love you. Listen, you guys, if you're still listening and you're watching live, a reminder that tonight, starting at 4 p.m., 2 hours from now, there is a Junkie Happy Hour. If you go to the Sigler Junkies, you can find the link in Sigler Junkies if somebody has it and they want to drop it in this chat now. If you're listening to the podcast, that is obviously over. So that is it for episode 70 of StorySmack. You can always find Scott and I online. Scott is at Scott Sigler on Twitter and on Instagram, and he is Facebook.com/Scott Sigler on Facebook. He's at twitch.tv/Scott Sigler and YouTube.com/Scott Sigler. I am at A Real Girl on Twitter and at A.Real.Girl on Instagram.
And you can find us online at facebook.com/StorySmack. We live stream StorySmack every other Saturday at facebook.com/Scott Sigler, twitch.tv/Scott Sigler, and youtube.com/Scott Sigler. So if you're listening in the podcast feed and you want to join the fun and see Rob and all of his lovely toys, you can just go watch us live at any of those every other Saturday.
And of course, in addition to StorySmack, which we do every other Saturday, every single Wednesday during the pandemic, we do something called Sigler in Place. It is just live TV for an hour right where you're watching this now. Come join us at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesday, and, hang out with us for an hour and have some fun.
And we release an unabridged episode of a serialized podcast novel every week. You can get episodes for free every Sunday via iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more. Just go to scottsigler.com/subscribe for the links.
And we hope that you do subscribe so that you can hear Scott's books and more StorySmack and more Sigler in Place goodness every week.
And until next episode, may those god-darn force criminals, terrorists be brought to justice. And we will talk to you all real soon.